So I usually just open with a few updates about what is going on from my perspective, and then I take questions and talk about what you all want to talk about. We have a fairly small crowd tonight, so we can talk in greater depth than we usually do. And if you have specific things you want me to, if you don't have a question, but you'd just like to hear an update on something, please just let me know, because these really are structured to be for you all to get the information that you need from your city government. And I will point out Desiree over here. Desiree De Molina is our communications director. And then Taylor Brown and Margaret Van Schaik are out in the hall. They also are on the mayoral team and help support. So if you need anything, please direct questions that way. And Shatoya with her intern Max is here joining us. Shatoya is the director of our Community and Family Resources Department. So I want to, I'll just start with generally what's happening in Bloomington. And as I alluded to earlier, I'm getting a lot of questions about all of the road construction / sidewalk improvements that are happening downtown and blocking lanes. And so here's what's happening. There was a whole bunch of ARPA money that came in. And those of you who work in construction know that concrete's a little difficult these days. And so we sort of have to do the construction when the ARPA projects get approved and we have concrete ready to go. Unfortunately, the timeline is really compressed and we have to get these done by the end of the year. And so we've been pushing really hard to get these, the ADA ramps built, and then those usually affect the intersection. Then we do the repaving, et cetera, et cetera. So for this weekend, if you've been on College and Walnut Street today, you have perhaps experienced quite a traffic nightmare, which if you are like me, you're imagining what this weekend is going to be like, because we are so thankful to have a winning football team. It's great for our economic development and our downtown businesses, and it's difficult on traffic. So we have talked to the contractor out there. We'll be sort of tying up some of that just for the weekend and reopening lanes. We hope to have that done by early afternoon tomorrow, and then we'll have to close them again next week to finish that work. So there'll be a little bit of reprieve just so we can get a bigger traffic jam into town, which we welcome. We're glad to have all of the visitors here in town, and then we'll have to finish that work. Additionally, I'll just update you, we are getting some questions about the scaffolding around the Princess Theater. That facade has deteriorated, and there's a tricky situation with who owns that right now. It's an estate. And so we're having a hard time creating safety around the Princess Theater, and the only way to create that safety right now is with that scaffolding. So we're working very hard on getting a good solution to the Princess Theater challenges. So that's the sort of general update about construction. You're going to continue to see these projects until the end of the year, so that we can improve some intersections and spend down that ARPA money on the appropriate timelines. We also have people want to talk housing. Do you want me to generally talk about housing, Tom? Yeah, okay. So my general approach to housing is we need more of it. And we have several initiatives on the front burner, really. One, of course, is the Summit development, which is on the southwest side of Bloomington. That, of course, got passed by City Council over the past year, and that is moving through the many steps of a large development process. Hopewell, too, is just getting turned out for an RFP on the south end of Hopewell. It is going to be bid out in several different pieces, and so we're really hopeful about Hopewell. It's really the city's greatest opportunity to try to provide affordable and workforce housing close to downtown. Of course, it's right there by Kroger and walkable to many of the other resources that we need. I really want to see a vibrant neighborhood there. And this is an opportunity for us to get a lot more people living right in the heart of downtown. That means eyes on the trail. That means activity downtown. I hope it means a greater mix of people that are able to live in Bloomington. For too long now, we have not provided an attainable place to live for our middle class and those of low income. And so we're working very hard on that. I will tell you, as most of you know, I've spent my entire professional career in housing, and it's never been more complicated to put together a project that is attainable for the middle class in particular. The technically affordable housing, that which is targeted at 80% or below of the median income, that qualifies for government subsidy. And so that's a little bit easier to piece together. We still don't have enough of it. But it's very hard to build something new or to rehabilitate a property in Bloomington or elsewhere at a price point that is affordable to somebody who is just entering the job market or otherwise in the middle class. So that's a concern for our community for a number of reasons. But the most obvious is because it creates a community that doesn't represent everybody. And it also creates a labor shed that is very broad, where people have to commute into our community. On our homelessness in Bloomington, the city's working very closely with Heading Home, and we are Heading Home, of course, is the umbrella organization that has created a strategic plan to ensure that housing is rare, brief, and non-repeating. They have a long-range plan that they've been working on for a number of years now, and they're working with many service providers over an entire region. It's a HUD region, so that's a number of different counties that HUD funds, and that's how the HUD funding structure goes. In the summer, various service partners got together and produced a housing action plan, and that is targeted at really reducing the number of people who are experiencing street homelessness. So that's unsheltered homelessness. We literally don't have a place to sleep, and Heading Home has broken that housing action plan down into a number of subcommittees that are working very hard on the unsheltered homelessness challenge. From my seat, we are seeing incremental progress already. And this is a national problem that every city in the nation is looking at right now, and nobody has figured out exactly how to solve this challenge. The answer, of course, when you are living without shelter is to have shelter. That's what solves the challenge of being unhoused. The different kinds of shelters that we need are many, and in order to meet the needs that different people have. And so we're working on solutions that support the varied needs, including a medical respite shelter that can support people who are medically fragile, either acutely or chronically so. You can ask me questions about that now or later. The other thing, yes, Don.
What's the size of the homeless that
Yeah, so the best and most up-to-date data that you're going to find is actually on the Heading Home website. There are a couple of different counts that happen. One is the point-in-time count. That's done every January. And then for the first time this year, there was a survey done of unsheltered homeless in the city. And I don't recall the exact number. Desiree, can you look that up real fast? It's over 100. I don't recall the exact number, but Desiree will look it up for you. And so in Bloomington, and this I think we should all be grateful for. In Bloomington right now, the number is actually a reachable goal. It's a number that we can feasibly say, okay, we have this many people that are sleeping outside. Let's figure out a plan to get everybody under roof.
Is Beacon part of it?
Beacon's part of it. Yep. There are many shelter providers. There's a Lawrence County, Morgan County, Beacon, Wheeler. Yep, and we have we have partners at HealthNet. We're working very closely with Stride as well, so we have a variety of service partners because there are many different people who come in contact with people who are experiencing homelessness. Some are shelter providers, and others may be healthcare providers or other providers that have a relationship. Yeah. Yes. Charlene.
Just a little bit how you come up with the numbers for the unhoused. I was wondering how that works.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we come up with the numbers for the unhoused? The point in time count is an organized system, and that is organized nationally. And so the volunteers are trained. There's a detailed survey, and literally it's a 24-hour process. This past year, South Central Community Action Program organized that pick count. We then send all of our numbers to the state, to IHCDA. Those get compiled, and there's a dashboard that you can look at that IHCDA does. So again, as we know, people who are unhoused tend to move. And so having that point in time count that everybody's doing on the same day gives the nation a picture of how many people we believe are unhoused. And that's both sheltered and unsheltered homelessness. The other survey that I was talking about, I hope we're able to do on an annual basis, because that was done in May, so warmer months. It's a little bit, it was a little bit easier to find people. And that one, rather than training a general volunteer population, that particular survey was done with among trusted relationships. So case managers that already know where people are sleeping and have trusted relationships and can go ask a few, hopefully fairly non-intrusive questions so that we can get our arms around this. Desiree.
117 sleeping outdoors in Monroe County.
117 sleeping outside. Mm-hmm. Yes, Wes.
I know that the city was instrumental in getting the interfaith winter shelter back up and running. Do you know if that's going to be open again?
Yeah, so the question is whether or not the interfaith winter shelter is going to be open again. It's called something different. It's called the cold weather. But yes, last year, two faith communities came together, First Christian Church and First United Methodist Church. Both are downtown. They came together with other faith communities, but those two buildings are the housing for for the crisis shelter. That is going to be, they've already mobilized, they're ready to go for this year, and that sheltering is up to 30, and it's only open in extreme cold weather. So it has to be less than 32 degrees or less than 35 degrees and precipitating, I think. Wind chill counts, et cetera, et cetera. They prioritize women and medically fragile for that. And for those of you who don't know, Wes is a member of our firefighters, and your station is right downtown. So you need to know where to send people, I know. Our fire team, our police, our public works, our parks, our community family resources, almost every department in the city is involved in some way in supporting our unhoused population and supporting the city, and in really helping people get their needs met. Yeah, Steve?
You said that you're working with Stride?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about Stride?
Yes, thank you for asking, because in this position, I had no idea how many people had never heard about Stride. Stride is the outcome of a large group that there were a large group of community leaders and service providers that met for 18 months or 2 years. And out of that, it was determined that our highest need was a crisis center, really, a place for people to go when they are experiencing some kind of crisis. And it also was intended to be a justice diversion center. So if the police pick somebody up and they are in crisis, if you have not been violent, you can be given the option of going to Stride instead and getting some help. Stride is staffed with mental health professionals. It's actually run by Centerstone. It's located directly across from the Showers building. So right there on Morton Street, and they're open 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They also have a mobile outreach unit, and the city is working on publicizing a plan. We've been meeting with all of the first responders and case managers that do outreach on the streets to put together a public guide for what number to call when you see X, Y, or Z. So if somebody is in some kind of mental health crisis, we do encourage you to call the Stride mobile team. And they have, again, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. They do welfare checks. They can go help sort of de-escalate nonviolent situations. If somebody's having a mental health crisis, their team is very skilled. They do this all day long, every day. And part of the reason that we're really encouraging folks to call Stride is because what they're seeing is that the more they can interact with somebody, the more trust they're building. And so somebody may, get dropped off by police one time and they'll stay for whatever it is, an hour, and then leave. But then they may come back on their own just to, it's warm, it's dry, they've got snacks and hot coffee. And the longer they have to build trust, the more likely they are to be successful in getting treatment for somebody who may need some longer term treatment. And so we really are encouraging people to call Stride if you experience somebody who's in distress. Stride's been a great partner with our police. They work with the Mobile Integrated Health Team, which is a team that our fire department has. How many people have heard about Mobile Integrated Health? Yeah, nobody, right? You just did. Okay, great. Fantastic. So we call them the MIH team, Mobile Integrated Health. It's one of the coolest things happening in the city. They are working with people who may have been frequent flyers at the emergency department or frequent calls to the fire department needing a lift or just needing some company sometimes. And they can work on some of these longer term challenges. So the MIH team, the police social workers, and Stride, they're all working really in lockstep. And this team that we've put together to make sure dispatch is routing calls the right way, and that all of the links are actually linking up when it comes to responding to somebody who's in crisis or may be in crisis. Stride also can do typical welfare checks. If we know there's no violence happening there, they can do a welfare check for folks. So there's also 988 that people can call if they themselves are experiencing a mental health emergency. That is something that doesn't require the ER or police. So that's sort of the screening for 988. Other questions about this train? You have a written question. I think this says, well, the gist of this, I can't read exactly, but the gist of this is it possible to let SROs, that's single room occupancies, go into the first floor retail of commercial, what is now commercial space? That is something that likely is going to be brought up to our city council and plan commission at some point. Not just SROs, but can we turn some of the vacant retail space back into residential units or into residential units for the first time? So that is a planning issue, and it is right now not included in our unified development ordinance to be able to do that. So each case would need a waiver or a variance, and so there is a conversation happening about whether or not we can turn some of that empty space into housing. And I'll tell you that if it's been vacant for a while, I think there's very little reason not to turn it into housing because the building already exists. So, and this will bring up another point that I'll put on the floor. There is conversation about making structural changes to the UDO, and my opinion on that is that we very well may need some changes to the Unified Development Ordinance, but that should not be done without an open conversation with the community. And my approach to that is to go to the community first before we have a fully baked plan and ask them to help us co-create solutions that actually work for our community, rather than writing resolutions and hoping to get them passed as a yes or no vote. We have great housing experts in the community. We have neighbors and residents that I think are willing to be creative about how we welcome new people into our neighborhoods. And so I am a proponent of having these open dialogues before we have fully baked resolutions that come before the public. Yes, Wes.
I don't want to bring up Tuesday, but does the current administration that's been elected in Indiana change anything for the city? Does the state administration that's been elected change anything for the city or the city's relationship with the state?
So the question is, does the new administration, the state, change anything for the city? That remains to be seen. I am, of course, hopeful to build bridges with anybody I possibly can. And I'll say that Republicans and Democrats alike are looking at the housing crisis. So I think we will, I think when it comes to housing, we probably will be okay. However, as we know, there have been a couple of things that the state has already done that have harmed our ability to really innovate around affordable housing. One of them is any ability to control rent or cap rent, and another is inclusionary zoning. So we have creatively found ways to incentivize affordable housing rather than requiring it. But you know, there are other issues that are of concern to me as the leader of our community. I think that a strong anti-gay, anti-trans, and anti-abortion stance is bad for economic development. It threatens our ability to attract high intellect workforce, and with the kind of sector development that we want to do, those folks look pretty seriously at who is welcome here and who feels welcome here. And there's only so much we can do as a city to protect people. We will do our level best. And I'll just say, you haven't asked about the national election, but I do want to address something that is deeply on my mind. We have people in our community, of course, that are hopeful about the national leadership and have their eyes on the positive change that may come on some avenues with that. We also have people who are terrified. And I have been contacted by people who are asking me if they will be safe, if their families will be safe. And we have had some hateful text messages happening around the country last night and today. And the FBI is involved with that. I'm not going to perpetuate those messages because I think that the senders of those messages, that's exactly what they want. But for anybody who thinks that people are just making a big deal out of the election, I want to assure you, people are scared for good cause because they are directly receiving messages that cause them to be scared. And my commitment to this community is that we will do whatever we can in our power to keep our residents safe, to be a welcoming community, and to ensure that we are welcoming all voices to the table, so that our leadership is representative, and so that we can truly be good and welcoming partners that create a community of belonging. Yeah. Our fabulous council member, Courtney Daly, has joined us.
Apologies, I'm so sorry. Yes, sorry, my deepest apologies. My appointment ran late and I parked far from my appointment, so I ran and I'm a little sweaty. I apologize.
We won't make you talk yet then.
I caught my breath on the drive over, thank goodness.
Good.
But I'm very happy to be here, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Courtney. And the way we usually run these, if you want to open with anything, you're welcome to, but they're usually very casual conversations, answering questions about priorities that are of concern to people who are here. But if you want to talk about anything that you're working on, you're welcome to now or later.
I have nothing on my mind at the moment.
Okay,
I
great.
reserve the right to change that.
Great. What else is of concern to folks tonight? Nothing. Jen?
So I think many times people ask, hey, what can government do for us? But you need partnership, maybe. I don't want to assume anything. What do you need from us across the community for the things that you're
so I can think of a few things. The first thing is that for the topics I just talked about, I really am encouraging people to reach out to your Black and brown friends, to your female friends, to your LGBTQIA plus friends, to anybody who may be othered in any way, and check in with them and let them know that you support them, and that if there's any safety concerns, their community wants to help. It's going to be critical to really band together. The other thing is, I really am, I can't beat this drum more loudly. I am really encouraging people who have never served on boards and commissions to think about doing that, especially if they have a passion, and especially if they're a diverse voice or are well connected to diverse voices. Those boards and commissions make critical decisions for our community, and it's a leadership role, and you can make a difference. The next thing I'll say is that the challenge that is in front of us with really meeting the needs of our unhoused neighbors, that is everybody. It's what I call a Pictionary all play. Everybody has a role they can play. If you have extra funds in your checking account, you can. Several of our partners are in active capital campaigns, and they are meeting those needs very directly. Those are shelter providers, they're food providers, et cetera, et cetera. If you see somebody on the street who just needs a hello, that's going to make a difference. And we are working very hard at the city to keep things cleaned up, to make sure that we're meeting bathroom needs and other needs, to ensure that our community is, looks like a pride point. It's a beautiful place to be. But we could use all kinds of help. We had a downtown community cleanup day about a month ago, and we had more than 90 volunteers come and work together with city employees, and we had really people from everywhere, businesses, many different departments. I was out there. It was fun, and I got to meet a whole bunch of folks that are invested in our community in different ways. So there are a bunch of ways to help, but I think one of the things that we tend to do when a problem gets so big that we just think it can't be solved is that we get angry instead of looking for even a small thing we can do to help. And while anger may move some people to action, it actually is not very productive. And so I am always open to creative ideas for how I can serve better and how our teams can serve better. But I also just want to tell you all that I think Bloomington is a small enough community with a big enough problem and enough compassion that we may be the community that gets to solve this thing and set a model for the country. And I am committed to doing my level best to do that. So if you see even a small part you can play, even if it's a smile on the street to somebody who probably hasn't had a smile all day, it may be what they need to keep going. Yeah, Steve?
Going back to housing, I was trying to get this in a moment ago, but I was out at Crestmont today, visited with somebody in one of the newly remodeled apartments. So beautiful. Very small, but the way it's laid out and everything that's in there is just perfect. And I just wondered, can you kind of give us an update on the renovations out there? I mean, are we done, or are there any budget constraints or anything like that going on with that?
So I just want to speak some of those comments into the microphone so it gets caught by cats here in case folks are watching at home. So the comment was that he had been out at Crestmont, and that is a neighborhood that is up on the west end of 11th Street, near 11th and Monroe. And it is a public housing neighborhood, and that's run by the Bloomington Housing Authority. And for those of you who don't know, Bloomington Housing Authority is associated with the city, but it's a totally different entity. And the comment was that the remodeled units are really beautiful, and they're simple, but a place for everything, and really nice place to live. And are we done? Are there budget constraints, et cetera? That project is fully funded. We're having a grand opening of the Child Care Center November 22nd, and so that is open to the public. And so if you want to experience a pride point of this neighborhood, please come then. We are still doing some work out there, but I agree, Steve. The place is looking great, and when I talk to residents up there, they're really pleased with the improvements, and I'm proud of that neighborhood. And of course, Community Kitchen just opened their newly renovated. Well, they totally rebuilt their center out there. So things up near Crestmont are looking great these days. Yes.
But going back to the unhoused, so far I think you've closed 4 encampments since you've been there. Where have those people gone?
So the question is, we have closed 4 encampments since I've been mayor. Where are people going? The honest answer is they go to different places, and sometimes we don't know. And my commitment right now is to not close encampments unless they become truly unsafe. And what we're working towards as a community is a community that can really say to everyone, we have a roof for you to sleep under tonight. And what that means is you don't have to sleep outside anymore. And when you are sleeping outside, it is not a situation that you can ever really thrive in, because you're spending all of your energy just trying to survive. So what we're working towards as a community is being able to say to everyone, we have a place for you to go. We have, with some, frankly, I think kind of surprising success, worked with a couple of leaders within the camps to talk to them about what needs they have in order to help keep their camps safe, so that, while we're working on more permanent solutions, they don't have to move again. And that means safe for everybody. So we've had fires that have gotten out of control and threatened the lives of people in the camps, have threatened homes of people living near the camps. And there have been other situations that either people in the camps or people near the camps are become unsafe. So my goal is to keep those camps as safe as we can, in partnership with those leaders, while we are working on more permanent solutions. Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the topic of homelessness and the Heading Home plan.
Mm-hmm.
There's an action plan that was unveiled 2 or 3 months ago. I know Mayor Thomson knows this, but for the sake of everybody else, my wife, Mary Morgan, is the director of Heading Home. Make of that what you will. But in that action plan, there's a price tag, $1 million for caseworkers, and that's $1 million a year. $1 million for street outreach
So the question is, there are several price tags associated with the Heading Home plan and the Housing Action Plan, which is the direct action plan of to address the street unhoused. And the two line items that Dave Askins has asked about are for personnel, so not capital expense. And those expenses are, and the question is, what do I see as the city's role in funding those things? I think the city is a critical convening partner and maybe a partner in capital expenses. It is much more difficult for the city to fund ongoing personnel expenses. And with intention, the Heading Home team did not necessarily assign the different price tags to specific entities, and there are different entities listed as potential partners. So we have been I've been in very constant contact with Team Heading Home, and so have various other team members at the city, and so I expect it to be an ongoing conversation, how we're going to do that. But I don't think the city can fully fund those things, and the challenge is we need a plan to at least get those started. I have been participating in some grant solutions that we hope are going to step forward and make a significant contribution to those. Yes.
Does the city actively try to retain IU students after they graduate?
Does the city actively try to retain IU students after they graduate? I would say the city would love to actively retain IU students after they graduate, and I think that our unfortunate greatest export in Bloomington are those students that graduate. So we're working on a number of levels to try to attract them to stay. And I think it's another long game for us. And Tom, you know better than most folks in the room, housing is a critical part of that. So sometimes they'll stay for a year or two, but when they're ready to move out of student-like housing, there's no place to go, and their salaries may not be increasing at the pace of what it would require to get into more professional housing. And so, it has been said that I think housing is a solution to many things, but that's going to be a critical piece that we have to solve. And it's not just students that, it's employees that want to come in for other jobs as well.
We have so many great people coming to build IU. Love to keep some of them.
That's right. I would too.
If I can just add to that, I mean, that was my initial response. My first thought was the housing. But also, I hear when we're building new student housing, I hear a lot of grumbles around the city about us building more housing for students. Well, that's part of it too, is making them feel welcome and making them feel that they are a part of the community, not just a guest in our community. So I think when we see new student housing going up, we need to understand that that's part of then trying to keep them here after graduation as well.
Jen?
My question's about our aging population. So, the IU Indiana Business Research Center recently put out demographic projections, saying from 2020 to 2050, Monroe County's over 65 population is gonna grow by 48%. Our workforce population is gonna shrink by about 4%, and our under 20 population is supposed to shrink by around 10%. And, that's obviously a big challenge. We talked about
The data that you're talking about that came out from the Business Research Center is jarring data to read. I'll say that. And my top concern when I read that was we're losing our working population, and then we're increasing population that's of retirement age, and to your point, we'll need added services. And so I think we have great partners that are working in the healthcare system, et cetera, et cetera. And my focus will be, how do we increase that workforce population? Because again, we need a balanced community. And I think it's great that we're a great place to retire. I do think we again need housing that's targeted at the over 65 population. That is, it's a different kind of housing. It tends to be that's more accessible and could be smaller. And if we're providing that well, in theory, it frees up some of the larger homes that people may not have a good place to go from. So they stay in a larger home because they can't move into something that they prefer during their retirement. We have great partnerships with Area 10, and of course we support the Enright Center at the mall, and I think our Parks and Rec does a great job with some balanced programming. So those are sort of the city roles there. I'll also say that our public transportation, I think, could, as we seek to improve that, it could be making a pretty significant impact in transporting people more easily and getting them closer to where they want to go on a more frequent basis. Nope. Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to pass along a message from a Monroe County elected official.
Yes.
Tell the mayor thanks a lot for those police raises. Could cost the county $750,000. I was wondering if you had any response or reaction to that.
I'm just going to guess who that was. Yeah, I think I'm going to guess at what's being insinuated here, which is that we did just increase our police and fire salaries, and those are union negotiations, of course. We were well beyond the mark of being behind on those, and really, our ability to retain our public safety officials was dwindling. They were very underpaid, and these are the folks that put their lives on the line to protect the rest of us. So I will say I see that it can be a game of cat and mouse, and the fact of the matter is that we were the lowest paid police agency in the county and one of the lowest paid in the state before we made that change. And so we really did that to be equitable and fair, and we have a much higher call volume than many of the other law enforcement agencies. And so I feel good about what we did. And I think if you all want a city that really works for you, we need to acknowledge that we have to pay the people who do the work, to have them take pride in what they do, and to make sure that they're not expending a tremendous amount of their human resources on just trying to survive by working a second job or otherwise. So it's a value I hold, and I want our teams to know that their work means a lot.
I support the salary raise for Bloomington PD and the fire department, but you probably also need more of them.
We do.
So how are you going to attract
That's right. That's right. That's right. And we have the highest fire rating you can get. That comes with a well-trained team of firefighters. And what that does for you all, just so you know, is it decreases your insurance rates. So it actually affects your pocketbook to live in the city of Bloomington in a positive way. We also have one of the highest trained police forces. And what that means is that they can provide your safety well and with the least amount of force possible. And those are values that I think many of us share in Bloomington, the value of de-escalating situations before using force.
Yes.
So, let me say a couple things here. One is, thank you for the efforts made to increase those salaries. I really think it's important for our city. The other is, we're now very local. This is Spicewood. And we've just recently had our streets resurfaced. And I want to say that the streets crew did a great job.
Oh, great.
Of doing it and being respectful of actually what we had to do in the neighborhoods, like get in and out while the paving was going on. They were wonderful. So pass that on to them.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I will absolutely, our street crew is awesome, and appreciate the accolades for the increased pay for police and fire. And that, of course, was approved by council. And so if you do appreciate those things, it's important to let your council members know that that is what you wanted, and that you appreciate that, because they represent you.
Well, that's the perfect segue into something that I did think of that I wanted to say. And it was actually coming off of Jen Pearl's question about what you guys can do to support us, which is stay in contact with us and reach out to us and share your feedback. I want to hear from constituents, whether it's something that we're going to be talking about in council or something that we're not talking about, but you think we should be talking about. I have a constituent meeting planned a week from tonight. So Thursday, November 14th, it's at the Downtown Public Library at 5 o'clock in room 2A, right up on the second floor. Last constituent meeting that I had, I brought my book and I read the entire time because nobody showed up. So, and it was a very good book, so I didn't mind. But I was there because I want to talk to people in the community and find out what everybody's thoughts are and what they think we should be doing and how they think we're doing with the things we are doing. So if you can't make the meeting, send me an email, reach out to me some way. I'm happy to meet up, and I do want to connect with everybody.
What district are you?
I'm District 5, sorry. Yes,
This is her home district. She's your person.
I'm your person.
Is Hyde Park in that, District 5?
It is, yes.
Can you repeat the time of that meeting on the 14th?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
How do you publicize it? Because I certainly wasn't aware of the first one.
It will be on the city website. I just haven't officially submitted that. But they do put, if you go on the city council website for the city, they post those. And it's on the calendar that they publish too.
Do you keep a email list from interested constituents?
No, I had asked when I first was caucused in. Sorry, I would like to. I had asked our attorney when I was learning the ropes and getting my orientation, and I was under the impression that we didn't have one.
Yeah, so Courtney got caucused in. We're really grateful to have you. And the city council members that ran more typical campaigns tend to have email lists in their campaigns. And so this district may not have a good email list. Anyway, maybe there's a way that you can. Yeah. And I would tell your friends about these town halls and also about Courtney's sessions, because it tends to be, we get a lot of the same folks coming to meetings. And I know we're all really eager to hear from many voices, and to let folks know it's not intimidating, I hope, to come to these and talk to us. But in my office, we're also happy to get calls and emails, and I know several council members are really good at responding to their emails. I'm going to talk about a hot topic since nobody's raising their hands. I'm going to talk for a minute about annexation because it's maybe not on the top of mind for many people here. But I learned a lot about annexation in my first 6 months on the job. And you know, I disagreed with the way that annexation was generally approached in the last administration. And I have really looked at where we are with annexation and the services that we're providing outside of city limits already, and the cost to continue those, as well as the urbanized area that has been created. Most impactful to me has been to read and to talk to some experts that study how cities grow and prosper or end up declining. And the elasticity of the city border is the key to ensuring that a city can prosper. And so especially when a city gets landlocked and cannot develop housing and cannot urbanize past a very locked state, what happens economically is that not only the city, but the entire county and sometimes the region, if it is the economic hub for a region, begins to go into economic decline. The data is pretty convincing on this. And so I came to believe, and still do, that proceeding with the annexation that was already in process was the right thing to do for the city. And I am going to hold a listening session just about annexation, actually out in the county, but everybody's welcome, on December 9th. Is that right? Because I want to hear from especially people in the areas intended for annexation about what they need. I think lots of them have heard, whether or not this is what was said, that we just want your taxes and you're not getting anything in return. And that's not at all what I want. And I don't think that's what the rest of the city wants, especially not our city employee team. And so we're going to do some genuine listening and hear what people want, what their concerns are. I've heard a lot of, frankly, myths that I understand why people believe them to be true. But I just want to have an opportunity to just really honestly answer questions and be able to address people's concerns and genuine fears about what might happen if annexation goes through. You know, I won't be able to talk about any details of legality because, of course, it's in the courts. But I don't think that should prohibit us from having human conversations about what people need and what they want. And so if you have friends who are really concerned about annexation, especially if they're in the county, but also if they're in the city, please let them know about that listening session. And others have signed up to come to my traveling office hours and talk to me directly about what their concerns are, and I've really appreciated that. So those traveling office hours are on a regular schedule as well, and just want to let folks know that the door's open for that conversation. Yes?
One question about some of the bike lanes in the city, and you know, the raised sections that indicate the bike lane as opposed to the car lane. And I'm thinking of the one in particular behind the East Side Blooming Foods that seems to be really treacherous, and a lot of cars have run into it, and
I agree. And are there patterns? Yes, but is there unification? No. And this was one of my concerns when I was running for mayor, and we've had long conversations about it in our planning department, et cetera. And there are a couple of different things that are happening, and part of this I think is going to need some public education about what is what. So there are greenways, and those are meant to be places that are made even more safe for bikes and pedestrians to be than they already are. Those are picked based on already being at least kind of safe, and then we try to make them more safe. But those are not protected bike lanes, and a protected bike lane would have the curb or something else. The one that you're talking about was part of the development, and it was done wrong the first time, and then the developer had to come back and do it again. And I frankly think it needs a yellow curb. I think that would help with being able to see it. So now that it's put back, and I don't even know if it's yet permanent exactly as it is. I don't know if it's been inspected or not. But I agree, there's some site problems, especially with the way traffic's moving over there. And then, for instance, on Third Street, we did a protected bike lane that looks different. It's not a poured curb. That was a much lower cost and actually was installed to see how well it would work, because we can essentially take those back up and do something different there. That one seems to be working pretty well. But those are two examples of why you see different things, that there's different construction methods, but then there's also a different definition. So a greenway versus a protected bike lane.
Yeah, it just seems like, it's a problem because, I'm thinking about 7th Street, where I'm thinking about a lot of things. But on 7th Street, you've got, in some places you have the bike lane on one side, and then, and then on 7th Street you have both directions of the bike lane on one side only. And I have seen so many cars mistake that for an actual lane for them. And it seems like sometimes these bike lanes are actually causing more problems. So I was just wondering, I was wondering I don't have an answer to it, but it just seems like wherever you go, there's some different arrangement.
Right, yes. And it is challenging, and while it seems like we have a lot of them already, we don't have enough of them to see the pattern. And so, and that's why I say, I think part of it is a public education piece, because as much as we want the bikes to be safe, a lot of that is both biker and driver education. When I see this, how do I behave? And it needs to be very clear. And that 7th Street, the 7 line, I think it was a big change for the community. It wasn't marked well, and I saw a lot of cars initially driving down the bike lane, so much so that I wouldn't ride in it for a long time. Now, my experience is it has gotten safer. People are getting used to it. There have also been some visual changes and some obstructions put in the way, so people aren't turning into it with such frequency. Hopefully not at all anymore. But agree. We are really working on it, and if you have ideas for how we can continue to work on it, I want you to know we would love to hear them. There is likely going to be another public input session on the potential Indiana bike lane. And that is because, and this is great, That's because they thought they had a good set of options, and in one of those input sessions, somebody gave them a better option. And now they want to vet that with the public. So I want you to know these things actually affect what we do in the end. So when you come and you offer us ideas for how we can do things better, we had sort of forecasted already implementing something, beginning to implement and budget for it, and somebody gave us a great idea. So we're going to go back to the public and see what works best.
I guess one idea I would have is to sort of uniformly make them all the same size, too, because I'm thinking about the one behind Bloomington Foods again, it's pretty big. And then some other ones are smaller, and then some bike lanes just start out as a bike lane, and then it just disappears.
Yeah.
So, again, I don't mean to make a problem, but it is confusing as a
Yes.
driver. You don't want to hit somebody, you don't want to do the wrong thing,
Right.
So,
Yeah, so you want to be a really aware driver, and the discrepancies are confusing. And I'll say our team is trying to get things as uniform as possible. And of course, the streets are different widths, and the traffic counts are different, and emergency services needs different things. I mean, they need the same things, but it needs to be turning radiuses and things have to work. So keep up the suggestions, and I hear that it's a priority to make things as uniform as possible. I'm gonna invite Courtney to say some closing words. I'll close out my piece. We are doing another listening session right after this for our Spanish-speaking residents, and I am. You're not required to stay, and so we do have to sort of move on and have our English-speaking attendees converse in the hallway instead of in here. But I wanted to express my deep thanks for being here tonight, for investing your time in improving our work and our city. It really does mean a lot to me, and I appreciate the investment that you make in coming to share your thoughts.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me, and for everybody for being here tonight. And, again, just to reiterate what I was saying earlier, I do want to hear from people. And so, spread the word too, like Mayor Thomson was saying, tell your friends. That's what City Council is here for too, to be hearing. We're not here just to, unilaterally make decisions. We want to know what's going on in the community. And the reason that I wanted to be a City Council person was because I want to help people in the community. And so that starts with knowing where people need help and just knowing how people feel about things. So I'll be honest, I'm slow with responding to emails, but I do check them, and I will get back if you email me. And I hope that you can make my constituent meeting next week. And it's for anybody, anybody in the community. You don't have to live in District 5. But also, now is the time when people are hopefully looking to get more involved in what's going on in our community. And so I echo, too, boards and commissions, that is a great way, and we do want to see new faces on there and get new ideas and hear from broader swaths of the population. And so that is going to be a really effective way to help out with the community.
Thank you for coming.